Welcome to Speed and Nguyen's Deep Dive podcast. Today, we're plunging into a situation that's developing very rapidly and has some pretty significant implications. We're talking about Typhoon Wipha.
That's right. And our mission today is really to help you cut through all the noise. We'll unpack the latest on Wipha as of today, July 21st, 2025. But crucially, we want to contextualize its potential impact
How are we doing that?
by drawing some direct comparisons to Typhoon Yagi from 2024. That one was, well, devastating. The goal here is to give you a shortcut, basically, to being really well informed, understanding not just what's happening, but, why it matters.
And what lessons we might have already learned.
Exactly, from past experiences like Yagi.
Okay. And to give you that clear picture, we've looked at a whole range of sources, haven't we?
We have official meteorological reports, real-time news updates, detailed impact analyses from people on the ground.
So it should be a pretty comprehensive view for you.
Hopefully, yes.
All right, let's jump right in then. Typhoon Wipha, also known as Bonso 3 in Vietnam and Krasing in the Philippines. It's the sixth named storm this season, the 2025 Northwest Pacific typhoon season, and it's already had quite a journey.
It really has. Wipha started as just a disturbance near the Philippine Sea only a few days ago, around July 16th.
Pretty standard start.
Fairly standard, yeah. But it intensified quickly, became a tropical storm by the 19th, passed through the northern Philippines, then strengthened again same day to a severe tropical storm.
And we saw different agencies classifying it differently.
We did. You had the JTWC, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, and the Hong Kong Observatory, the HKO. They actually upgraded it to a typhoon as it neared the Pearl River Delta.
But not everyone agreed.
No, the Japan Meteorological Agency, the JMA, they kept it as a severe tropical storm. It brought quite a bit of wind and rain to Hong Kong and Macau, then made landfall
Where was that?
in Jiangmen, Guangdong, China. That was yesterday, July 20th. And since then, it's been tracking towards the Gulf of Tonkin, towards Vietnam.
Okay, so for you, Speed, listening today, July 21st, what are the forecasts saying now? As it approaches Vietnam's coast, specifically around Quang Ninh and Haiphong, our sources say steady winds around 88 kilometers per hour currently.
That's about right for the current steady winds, yeah, with gusts maybe 103 to 117 kph. But it is expected to strengthen.
Right. How much stronger?
Well, by Tuesday morning, the forecast suggests it could strengthen further, steady winds hitting maybe 89 to 117 kph, and the gusts potentially reaching 150 to 166 kph as it enters the northern part of the Gulf of Tonkin.
That sounds serious.
It is. And what's really crucial here, I think, are the nuances in the international forecasts. They don't all paint exactly the same picture.
Like what?
Well, for instance, the JMA suggests Wipha might actually weaken a bit, maybe down to around 90 kph when it first enters the Gulf,
Okay.
but then surprisingly strengthen again as it gets closer to Quang Ninh Haiphong.
And others.
The HKO, Hong Kong, they expect it to pretty much maintain its current intensity, maybe track slightly more towards Ninh Vinh Thanh Ho.
So there's some disagreement or uncertainty about both the strength and the exact track.
Exactly. And this isn't just, a technical detail for meteorologists. It really highlights the inherent uncertainty in forecasting these complex systems, especially in a volatile place like the Gulf of Tonkin.
So for you listening, Speed, what does that mean practically?
It means relying on just one forecast source might not be enough. You really need that multi-source perspective to properly assess the risk and, prepare effectively.
Okay. So given those potential wind speeds, gusts up to 150, 160 kph, and the path uncertainty, what kind of impacts are we looking at on the ground from wind and rain?
We're definitely anticipating significant impacts. Look, winds of 89 to 117 kph, that's a strong tropical storm. That's easily powerful enough to uproot trees, knock down power poles, tear off roofs.
And near the eye, those stronger gusts.
Right. If gusts hit 150 to 166 kph, that's well into hurricane force territory. Very dangerous. And then there's the rain.
How much rain are we talking?
The forecast is for widespread heavy rain. Maybe 200 to 350 millimeters across the whole northeast region. That includes Quang Ninh, the Red River Delta, so Hanoi's in the mix too, and also the north central provinces like Thanh Hoa, Nguyen.
350 millimeters, a lot of water.
It is, and some isolated spots could even see totals over 600 millimeters. That kind of intense rainfall brings serious risks, obviously. Flash floods, landslides in the mountains.
And just regular flooding in flatter areas.
Exactly. Extensive flooding in low-lying urban areas, agricultural areas, it's a major concern.
With those kinds of predictions, it's probably no surprise authorities are already taking action, right?
Definitely not. Our sources detail widespread marine bans already in place. Coastal provinces like Quang Ninh, Ninh Ben, Nguyen, Haiphong, they've all restricted boat traffic.
Evacuations, too.
Yes, ongoing evacuations from vulnerable dike areas. And the Prime Minister himself has issued urgent directives securing communications, preparing essential supplies. They're taking it very seriously.
Makes sense.
Absolutely. And it's not just on land. The immediate travel impact is huge already. Vietnam Airlines, Vietjet Air, Pacific Airlines, they've all announced mass flight cancellations.
To where specifically?
Mostly to and from Haiphong and Quang Ninh, the areas expecting the most direct hit initially. The Civil Aviation Authority has even activated 247 response protocols, just managing the disruption, ensuring safety.
It feels like Vietnam's had a few storms already this year.
It has. Wipha is actually the third storm to affect Vietnam in 2025, after Wu Tip and Danis. So, yeah, it's not an isolated event. And we just saw that tragic boat capsizing in Ha Long Bay a couple days ago, July 19th.
That wasn't Wipha, though, was it?
No, that was apparently due to a sudden thunderstorm unrelated directly to Wipha itself. But it claimed at least 35 lives. It just really emphasizes how vulnerable things can be, how quickly conditions can change, even outside of a major named storm.
It really does. Okay, so to really grasp the potential significance of Wipha speed, I think we have to talk about Typhoon Yagi. The precedent had set back in September 2024.
Yeah.
Because Yagi, it wasn't just another storm, was it?
No, not at all. It was a devastating lesson. It fundamentally reshaped, I think, how Vietnam looks at disaster preparedness. The government itself called it the strongest in 30 years in the South China Sea and the strongest in 70 years on land. They noted many unprecedented characteristics.
And the numbers really tell the story, don't they?
They do. The statistics from Yagi are just stark. Over 300 deaths and disappearances, nearly 2,000 injuries, and the damages, an astounding $3.45 billion US.
$3.5 billion.
Yep. Which made it the costliest natural disaster in Vietnam's history. The economic hit alone was projected to shave 0.15 percentage points off Vietnam's GDP growth for 2024. It was like an economic earthquake.
An earthquake that touched pretty much everything. Homes, infrastructure.
Everything.
Yeah.
Over 280,000 homes damaged or completely unroofed, 120,000 flooded. We saw 1,300 schools damaged, 305 dikes compromised. Critical infrastructure like the Phong Chau Bridge collapsed.
Which tragically led to deaths there, too.
Yes, 4 deaths, 4 missing just from that bridge collapse. It's almost hard to comprehend that level of widespread destruction.
It really is. And the economic arteries, the businesses, supply chains.
They took a massive hit. There was a consulting firm, CEL, they reported that over 15% of companies faced severe disruptions. Another, 53, nearly 54% had manageable delays, but still delays.
What kind of damage were factories seeing?
Common damages were things like 50 to 60% of factories flooded, maybe 30 to 40% with significant roof damage. And power and communication outages were almost universal, 80 to 90% affected.
Any specific examples?
Yeah, big names too. Samsung Industrial Vietnam up in Bac Ninh, LG Electronics in Haiphong, their factories were flooded. Others had actual structural collapses, huge inventory damage. For many, it wasn't just a temporary shutdown, it was a complete halt. Massive capital losses.
And agriculture, always so vital for Vietnam.
Oh, absolutely. Agriculture was, without question, the hardest hit sector. We saw 262,000 hectares of crops just destroyed. 2,250 aquaculture farms swept away.
Livestock.
Devastating numbers. 2.3 million livestock and poultry dead. The immediate impact on people was obvious. Grocery prices shot up, sometimes doubled in wet markets.
Wow.
Yeah. Tourism also suffered badly. Over 20 tourist boats sank in Ha Long Bay. Huge losses for hotels, travel companies, even the railways. Vietnam Railway Corporation reported over $7.3 million in damages. Tracks buried by landslides in over 30 places, massive revenue loss from canceled trains. It really exposed vulnerabilities right across the board.
Given that potential, the preparations for Yagi must have been huge.
They were immense. It shows how seriously it was being taken beforehand. Our sources mention 12 northern provinces closing schools that affected over 6.5 million students.
6.5 billion.
Yeah. Nearly 50,000 people were evacuated from coastal areas, and the military mobilized almost 500,000 personnel, 457,460 troops for disaster response.
Unprecedented scale.
Truly unprecedented. For the first time ever, Vietnam issued a disaster risk level of 4 out of 5, the highest practical level for the Gulf of Tonkin. Even China pitched in, regulating the Red River's flow upstream to try and lessen the downstream flood peaks. The whole nation was bracing.
But speed, even with all that preparation, Yagi threw up this huge curveball, didn't it? The forecasts themselves. This became such a stark example of just how tricky meteorological prediction can be in real time.
It really did. There were significant inconsistencies between Vietnam's own forecasting center, the NCHMF, and the big international agencies, JTWC, the Chinese CMA, JMA in Japan, Hong Kong's HKO, especially about how strong the storm would be when it actually hit land.
And that's not just academic, is it?
Not at all. This raises a really important question, about how these discrepancies impact public safety, how resources get allocated. What Yagi showed, quite starkly, is that these differences directly affect the warnings people get, the urgency of evacuations, ultimately how well a nation can protect its people.
So what was the discrepancy specifically?
Well, NCHMF initially forecast Yagi to weaken. They predicted it would drop to maybe 12-13 on the Beaufort scale, that's BFT, when it entered the Gulf. Now, 12 Beaufort is basically the threshold for hurricane force winds.
Okay, but the international agencies saw it differently.
Very differently. They projected it would actually intensify over the Gulf. JTWC categorized it as a Category 4 equivalent storm with winds around 215 kilometers per hour. They described its approach as a historical landfall.
Historical landfall. Strong words.
Absolutely. The Chinese agency, CMA, reported winds of 60 meters per second. That's equivalent to 17 Beaufort as it got close to Quang Ninh and Haiphong. They confirmed it hit land as a super typhoon by their standards. JMA also estimated it strengthened over the Gulf.
Yet Vietnam's initial official reports were lower, still citing that 12-13 BF.
Precisely. And this is where it gets even more complex. There's a key weather station, Binh Xe, in Quang Ninh. Initial reports from there measured winds at a staggering 50 meters per second, which is 15 BF, with gusts hitting over 17 BF.
That's unprecedented for Vietnam on land, right?
Absolutely unprecedented. But those figures, they were later revised multiple times. Subsequent official reports only mentioned 14 BF winds for Binh Xe, and some later reports from NCHMF actually seem to omit the Binh Xe wind data entirely for a critical period.
So inconsistencies even after the event?
Yes. Even in their annual review meeting for 2024, NCHMF reported Yagi's landfall winds lower than all their previous reports, saying 10-12 BF with gusts 13-15 BF. They acknowledged Binh Xe measured 14 BF, but added it was at an altitude of 34 meters, sort of qualifying it. This pattern of, while apparent underestimation, even retrospectively, highlights a real challenge in communicating the true power of these storms.
And it wasn't just at the coast, was it? I remember reading that Hanoi's winds were much stronger than forecast, too.
That's right. VnExpress reported actual winds in Hanoi hit 10 BF with gusts up to 12 BF. The initial forecast was only for 6 to 7 BF. That's a huge difference, 3 levels higher. It really underlines the challenges in local forecasting, especially when apparently documented discussions with international experts happened, except during that critical period when Yagi was intensifying over the Gulf of Tonkin.
It leaves you wondering, doesn't it, about the flow of information and its impact on safety when forecasts diverge so much.
It really does. It underscores the complexity of modeling in these rapidly changing conditions and just how critical a unified, transparent approach to warnings really is.
Okay, shifting to the aftermath of Yagi. The recovery efforts must have been massive.
They were extensive. Fundraising campaigns alone pulled in over $60 million.
And the government's response.
They rolled out a 6-point recovery plan. Crucial financial aid, rebuilding infrastructure, even things like tuition fee waivers for students in affected areas.
Right.
But here's something really compelling: speed. Both Haiphong and Quang Ninh, remember, they were among the hardest hit economically. They actually declined central government relief funds.
Really? Why?
They consciously chose to use their own local resources, their own reserve funds, and they actively redirected that central aid towards more disadvantaged provinces that were also hit hard but had fewer resources.
Wow. That's quite something.
It really is. It wasn't just about managing budgets. It showed remarkable resilience, self-reliance, and this profound sense of solidarity, helping regions perhaps even worse off. A powerful lesson there.
Definitely. And that solidarity was global too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There was international aid.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Over $22 million in aid was pledged internationally from about 20 countries and organizations: the U.S., Australia, China, Switzerland, UK, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Ireland, Canada, Russia. Many others stepped up.
And support from Vietnamese communities abroad.
Huge support. They rallied, raising millions more. And beyond the money, you have the human element. The mental distress in affected areas was immense, understandably.
Of course. The public response was varied. Moments of silence for victims, but also, heated debates about things like tree planting practices in Hanoi. Some argued the types of trees contributed to how many were uprooted.
Interesting side effect.
Yeah. But alongside that, incredible stories of heroism. Like a village leader, Ma Seo Cho, up in Lao Cai. He apparently identified a landslide risk and evacuated his entire village, 115 people, just before it hit. Saved every single one of them. Stories like that really remind you of the human spirit in these situations.
Incredible. But the aftermath wasn't all positive, was it? There were some controversies around charity.
That's true. There was this issue dubbed the Phong Bat controversy. It involved accusations against some individuals, misrepresenting their charitable contributions or maybe exaggerating their efforts online. It sparked quite a public debate about transparency and ethics during crises.
Right, the challenges of ensuring trust when donations are pouring in. Exactly. It forced a bit of a public reckoning, really, with charity ethics in the digital age and how quickly trust can be damaged when people are vulnerable. Crucial conversations about accountability came out of that.
Okay, so let's bring this all back to today, to Wipha approaching the coast now. What does this whole precedent, this experience with Yagi, what does it mean for Wipha? What should you take away from this comparison?
Well, I think if we connect this to the bigger picture, Yagi provides really critical, tangible context for what's happening now. It hammers home the unpredictable nature of these storms, especially their potential to intensify rapidly.
And the need for better forecasting and response.
Absolutely. It underscores the urgent need for robust, accurate forecasting, or at least acknowledging the uncertainties and having rapid response mechanisms ready. Remember, Yagi's unprecedented characteristics, its rapid intensification, its record strength, that was partly attributed to significantly warmer sea surface temperatures in the South China Sea at the time.
The climate change link.
It's a vital insight, yeah. It suggests storms like Wipha could also defy initial expectations, could escalate in power quickly. What Yagi really teaches us is that preparedness has to account for that potential, always.
So the lessons are directly applicable now.
Directly. Especially regarding those forecasting discrepancies we talked about, and just the sheer scale of societal and economic disruption Yagi caused. Those lessons are crucial for how Vietnam handles Wipha, and frankly, how any vulnerable nation has to approach these increasingly extreme weather events. It's about learning from the past to protect the present and the future.
Well, Speed, we really hope this deep dive gave you a clearer understanding of the forces at play here, and maybe what it truly takes to navigate these challenging times.
And perhaps leaves you with a thought. As storms like Wipha and Yagi seem to become more frequent, more intense, what innovative long-term strategies can Vietnam and really other vulnerable nations to implement? How do we move beyond just recovery and actually adapt, maybe even thrive amidst this changing climate?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? Something for all of us to think about.
Indeed.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. See you again in the next episode of this podcast.